In 332 BC, Alexander the Great came to Tyre, one of the strongest and richest cities in the eastern Mediterranean. Tyre was not just another target. It was a fortress city, wealthy, proud, and protected by the sea. After his victory at Issus, Alexander was pushing south along the coast, breaking Persian-influenced city by city. But Tyre refused to submit. That refusal mattered. Alexander could not safely move on while such a powerful naval base remained behind him. As long as Tyre stood free, the Persian fleet and its allies still had a place to operate. So what began as a demand for submission became one of the most famous sieges of the ancient world. Tyre believed it could not be taken. And for good reason. Part of the city stood on an island, protected by high walls and surrounded by water. For an attacker without full naval control, it looked almost impossible to capture. But Alexander had made a habit of attacking what others considered impossible. And at Tyre, he would do it again. Tyre was not vulnerable in the way most cities were. This was not a simple land siege. The strongest part of the city stood offshore, with the sea acting like a defensive wall. Its fortifications were high, its position was strong, and its defenders were experienced, determined, and confident. A direct assault across open water would be disastrous. A normal blockade would take too long, and leaving the city untouched would be a strategic mistake. Alexander needed Tyre. But first, he had to solve the impossible geometry of the place. How do you reach a city that stands beyond the shore? His answer was extraordinary. If he could not easily reach Tyre by sea, he would bring the land to Tyre. Alexander ordered the construction of a massive causeway, a man-made road of stone and earth, stretching out through the water toward the island city. It was a gigantic engineering gamble, and the defenders of Tyre watched it happen from behind their walls, ready to destroy it if they could. The construction of the causeway was one of the most remarkable parts of the entire siege. Alexander's men began throwing stone, timber, rubble, and earth into the sea, trying to create a path wide and strong enough for siege engines and assault forces. But this was slow, dangerous work. The closer the causeway came to the city, the more exposed the workers became. Tyrian defenders attacked constantly. Missiles rained down from the walls. Ships moved out to harass the construction. The sea itself complicated everything, dragging at materials, shifting foundations, and turning engineering into a battle of endurance. Alexander answered with persistence. He protected the workers as best he could, brought forward siege machines, and kept the project moving. The causeway advanced, but every meter was contested. This was not one battle. It was pressure, counter-pressure, and survival over time. Tyre was fighting with walls, ships, fire, and patience. Alexander was fighting with labor, engineering, and sheer refusal to stop. The defenders of Tyre understood exactly what the causeway meant. If Alexander completed it, their island fortress would no longer be beyond his reach. So they struck back with imagination and violence. In one of the most famous moments of the siege, the Tyrians launched a fire attack against the Macedonian works. Using ships loaded for destruction, they set siege equipment ablaze and turned engineering progress into chaos and flame. For Alexander, this was a serious setback. Months of effort could be undone in a single successful strike. But the siege did not end there. Alexander adapted. Gradually, his position at sea improved. He gathered allied ships and began tightening control around the city. That changed the balance. Now Tyre was not only threatened from the causeway, it was increasingly pressured from the water as well. What had begun as a desperate attempt to reach an island city from the shore was becoming a complete siege, land and sea together. And once that happened, Tyre's room to breathe grew smaller. With the causeway pushed forward and naval pressure increasing, Alexander finally began to bring the full force of siege warfare against Tyre. Battering power, missile pressure, and repeated attacks focused on the walls. This was the turning point. The defenders were still fierce. They fought from towers, from ships, and from every strong position they could hold. But now the city was being pressed from multiple directions. The walls that had once seemed untouchable were being tested again and again. Sieges are often decided not in one instant, but in the slow destruction of certainty. Tyre had believed the sea would save it. Now that belief was collapsing. As breaches began to appear, and as Macedonian pressure increased, the final assault came into view. Alexander had not simply attacked a city. He had transformed the battlefield itself until the impossible became reachable. When the final breakthrough came, the struggle inside Tyre was brutal. A city that had resisted for months did not fall gently. The fighting was close, violent, and unforgiving. At last, Alexander's forces got into the city, and with that, the siege was over. Tyre had fallen. Its defeat sent a message far beyond its walls. This was not only the capture of a famous city, it was a demonstration of Alexander's will. He had faced a fortress protected by the sea, high walls, strong defenders, and major engineering obstacles. And he had taken it anyway. Strategically, the victory mattered enormously. With Tyre gone, Persian naval power in the region was weakened further. Alexander's road along the coast became safer. The eastern Mediterranean was opening before him. But the memory of Tyre endured for another reason. The siege revealed something essential about Alexander. He was not only a battlefield commander, he was also relentless. If speed failed, he used persistence. If direct attack failed, he changed the shape of the war itself. At Tyre, Alexander did not merely defeat defenders. He defeated distance, stone, water, and time. And that is why the Siege of Tyre remains one of the most extraordinary operations of the ancient world.